Okay, well, the throne speech is being described as a bit of a combination of the lowest prices, the law shopping flyer, and a rip-off of opposition policy ideas. This and today's Senate shenanigans are ripe topics for our Thursday MPs. Here they are. Well, we're pleased to have former Environment Minister Peter Kent. He's agreed to appear as a regular panelist, subject to how well he does today and in the future. And Nova Scotia NDP MP Robert Chisholm is already a regular guest. And Labrador Liberal MP Yvonne makes her power play debut today. Welcome, Yvonne.
Thank you.
All right, I go to you first, Robert, on this. Describe what Charlie Angus was so upset about in the House and what you think the problem is with the Prime Minister. Doesn't he have plausible deniability on this whole Nigel Wright thing?
Well, he said that nobody knew anything. Nobody in his office knew anything about this, just Nigel Wright. Nigel Wright was carrying the can on this, and yet the evidence keeps coming out day after day after day to prove him wrong. You know, to make it clear that he provided information to the House of Commons that simply was not true.
But aren't staff there to protect the bosses from knowledge that's too dangerous to know?
Don, you can't lie in the House of Commons.
Okay.
It's just that simple.
Peter, is the Prime Minister caught in a bit of a nose-stretcher here?
Well, no, because the Prime Minister, at the time that he answered those questions with the answer that Mr. Wright was solely responsible for the decision taken and the actions taken, he was speaking to the best advice available to him at that time. Since then, of course, we have further details, further information has come out. A variety of inquiries and investigations are underway, and we will wait. We will not rush to judgment, but await the results of those inquiries.
Yvonne, where are the Liberals in this?
Well, I think Canadians are losing trust in the Harper government, and when you see scandals like we have with Nigel Wright, the miscommunication and messaging from the Prime Minister's office is causing them to lose even more trust. I think the Prime Minister needs to come clean here, start telling Canadians exactly what happened, who in his office was made aware, release the information, and be transparent. That's what people are asking, and that's what they expect from their government.
Where does this end up, Robert? I mean, could this end up as a contempt motion or a contempt finding in the House?
Well, let's be clear where we are. This is the first day back, first question period back, after the government prorogued the House, delayed its opening by a month. The Prime Minister's not here. The Prime Minister skedaddled. And don't tell me that this business about the EU, which is a big deal, the EU trade deal, it's a big deal, no question. But, you know, the fact that it just happened to be on the first question period, I mean, you know, with this guy, there's no coincidences. We're asking for the Prime Minister to explain why he gave us evidence in June, why he gave us information that is clearly wrong. And he's not even here to defend himself.
Peter, he could have arranged this a little differently on scheduling, couldn't he?
Well, no. When one is negotiating a trade deal as large as the EU deal is, the second largest after NAFTA, it represents the opening of a market to Canadian manufacturers, farmers, a huge opportunity for us. And this negotiation, as you know, has been pursued aggressively for some time, but it has come together now, which is a coincidence.
It was supposed to be done. It was supposed to be done in December. Let's be clear. And probably if it had waited until Sunday, the Prime Minister could have signed it that day.
But we don't sign agreements until agreements are concluded and complete.
You can't change the fact that the Prime Minister was here yesterday. He had all the media at his disposal yesterday. He could have come clean on the Nigel affair yesterday when he was in the country, and he chose not to.
He knew that this period didn't occur until today.
You don't need a question period to tell Canadians what's going on in your government.
But those questions have been out there for some time, and the opposition, understandably, is pursuing these questions, but our position is also clear. There are inquiries underway. The Prime Minister spoke and answered to questions over the last 6 months to the best of his knowledge at the time.
And he'll be in the House next week and he'll face the music. Maybe. Unless he can find another deal.
I mean, you remember, we all thought he was going to be in the House of Commons today to deal with the question period.
He's just postponing the inevitable, Robert.
3 o'clock yesterday afternoon.
All right. I want to move along. And I can't resist. I've got the former Environment Minister here. And there was references in the throne speech to polluter pay. And I found that kind of interesting because that could be a cap and trade or a carbon tax kind of thing because that's pollution too. What do you mean? What do they think they mean by polluter pay? What's going to happen there?
Well, we'll have to wait to see the legislation.
You know what's happening, okay.
But we've always, our sector-by-sector regulation with regards to greenhouse gas reduction is on the basis of polluter pay, and the cost benefits of each of those sectors that have been regulated to date, and the oil and gas sector as...
Where's that? Where is that? You said it was imminent like 4 months ago.
It is coming together, and as with the EU free trade agreement, agreements will be discussed when they are concluded. But it's important negotiation, it's important regulation, and the polluter pay principle will be applied.
Well, it's a good principle and we support it, but why is it taking so long to get out there? You're the former Minister of Environment. You know, there's been a long time this has been talked about within the Conservative Harper government with no implementation.
Legislative changes have been taking place. CIA 2012 provided for much stricter enforcement and much greater penalties, but there is more to be done with regards to the safeguarding of seas and skies, the tanker regulations.
But you're the very government who's eroded the environmental framework that we've had in this country for almost 3 decades. When you look at
it's not totally
the
pick on
Fisheries
environment.
Act, the Navigational Waters Act, the Environmental Assessment Act,
and strengthened all of those environmental laws.
Jump in here, Robert.
Polluter pay principle is something we have been pushing. Tom talks about that all the time. It's already contained in our Environmental Assessment Act.
Yes, it is.
Right?
So
this government needs to enforce its own legislation already that's there. The other thing that's going to be interesting to see is what the government actually does with this, because you know, that's why we support a cap and trade, because that's what that is. That's exactly what that is, a polluter pay principle. I want to move. And so we're going to see what the
I've got to get one thing in.
All about.
If you got 10 seconds, and you know what that means being a former broadcaster, like 10 seconds.
Since CIA 2012 was proclaimed just over a year ago, it has proceeded well with regards to enforcement, with regards to assessment, the elimination of redundancy, and we're getting positive comments from NGOs, many NGOs, from industry, and from our provincial partners.
Robert Chisholm, I want to go to you because the government's proposing a crackdown on cyberbullying. Rehtaeh Parsons was the motivation behind this. I got to say, you got one of these bills already before the House. Tell us what you're proposing and how is it going to be different from what the government should be doing, Peter?
Well, they've only in the throne speech they only talked about the principle. My concern and the family's concern and the supporters of this legislation concern is that they're going to wrap it into a bill with all kinds of other things in it. It could end up getting delayed, distracted, and maybe even defeated, not on the basis of the fact that we support the principle of changing the criminal code to deal with the non-consensual distribution of intimate images. So what I proposed today in the House was I asked for unanimous consent to move Bill 540, which is my private member's bill, through, consider it deemed having been read at second reading, go to committee, and let's deal with it, but the Conservatives voted against it.
Is that a good idea, Peter? Why not move it through?
We're on the same wavelengths with regards to cracking down on cyberbullying. I mean, there is no difference among the parties there. But I believe that the legislation which the government will present will deal with aspects of the transmission of private images with criminal intent. There are a combination, you're quite right, there are a combination of measures that will need to be taken to be effective. And I would basically suggest patience until we see what the government legislation looks like.
Well, patience.
And the process through committee.
There was a Liberal resolution by my colleague Hetty Fry going back to 2009 on this issue presented in the House of Commons that was not acted up on. So, you know, this is taking a very long time. It is the protection of people's rights and privacy.
Absolutely.
It's a major issue in Canada. You look at the headlines today, there's every high school in this country dealing with sexting and those kinds of issues, and it's important that we bring in proper penalties and legislation.
Well, and that's what